I'm Courtney, and I am going to be refuting the proposition that the recreational use of autonomous cars will remain an impractical method of transportation throughout our lifetime. The argumenter's secondary claims were autonomous cars are unreliable and therefore dangerous, people don't trust autonomous cars with their lives, and that the technology exists but it can't be implemented. So for autonomous cars are unreliable and therefore dangerous, I actually looked up one of the sources that the argumenter had provided. It was called Wired.com, and he used the argument that Google's self-driving car caused an accident with a school bus, and that means that self-driving cars are dangerous. But in the paragraph right under that, it states that Google's car was in autonomous mode and it was only driving at 2 miles per hour at the time of the crash, and the school bus was only driving 15 miles per hour. No injuries were reported, and the only damage that happened was to the front left wheel and the fender of Google's self-driving car. It also states that Google's cars have driven more than 1.3 million miles since 2009, and that as of January, they had been involved in 17 crashes that were all caused by human error. So that one in February with the school bus was the very first time that the autonomous car had actually caused an accident. Under that same secondary claim, he also said that self-driving cars are rear-ended 50% more than traditional vehicles. An article on Fortune.com stated that self-driving cars were not to blame in any of their crashes, and also found that the injuries in those incidents tended to be less serious than in regular accidents, and that self-driving cars actually have a lower fatality rate with 0 deaths resulting from those crashes. The argumenter's secondary claim was that people don't trust autonomous cars with their lives. On worldifeconomics.com, according to America's National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration, 94% of car accidents are due to human error, and the 3 leading causes are alcohol, speeding, or distraction. And self-driving cars cannot drink alcohol, they are designed not to break the speed limit, and they cannot get distracted by a text message. Those cars are basically designed to eliminate all distractions from the road, so the 3 leading causes are causes that are caused by humans, so it's pretty difficult for an autonomous car to commit any of those. And he also brought up the point that if accidents happen, who is at fault with the autonomous car? And according to the Insurance Information Institute, insurance is actually evolving around the use of autonomous cars as companies like Tesla are becoming more popular in this industry. And they said that there will be a need for liability coverage, which is underway. The coverage will change as manufacturers and suppliers, and even possibly the municipalities, are called upon to take responsibility for what went wrong. So if there is ever an accident that is the fault of the autonomous car, the suppliers are going to have to take responsibility for that according to the Insurance Institute. And his third secondary claim was that the technology exists for the autonomous cars, but it cannot be implemented. And one of his points under that was that approximately 65% of U.S. roads are in poor condition, and that interferes with the sensors of the autonomous vehicles. But according to an Israeli software designer, there's a microchip made by the company Mobileye that has outfitted over 100 vehicle models and 3.3 million actual cars. And this technology is capable of detecting pedestrians, animals, debris, land, street signs, and traffic signs. And it has successfully been implemented in the rear backup cameras of conventional cars and is being implemented in autonomous cars as well. And according to Morgan Stanley, who is a software designer for Google's autonomous car, it says, Mobileye's secret sauce is its proprietary software algorithm that interprets a video feed from a front-mounted camera to analyze the road ahead of the car and interpret the environment around the car. So the camera and the software is solely designed to make sure that the car understands the environment around it and can avoid anything that is not in the clear driving path. So in closing, I believe the argumenter did not do sufficient research to solidify his proposition. I was able to use a lot of his sources in order to refute it, so that is my presentation.
Okay, the IDs of the proposition, the secondary points are pretty clear. On the reliability issue, I thought that you did a nice job talking about the one particular accident that seems to have been uniquely caused by the autonomous cars. You diminished the significance of that particular accident. You put it into a different context, which I think does diminish the issue to some degree. The argument about the source of these accidents, I thought that you suggested on the rear ending, for instance, that, again, a whole series of arguments that diminish the importance of those particular points. I'm not sure that it automatically means that people are going to see these as trustworthy, though, and I think that kind of ties in a little bit with that second point. On the trust issue, the way you go about it is by talking about the source of the existing problems, and I think maybe you could make a comparison that says, look, the vast majority of accidents are caused by these other sources, and autonomous cars are never going to have those particular problems, so there's good reason to trust those cars. And in fact, if you could show some level of reliability of the autonomous cars, that would make it a little bit stronger. I think that you've got some information in another spot where you talk about the number of miles that have been traveled, or the number, and then in a different spot the number of cars that have been equipped with some of the software. I think if you could combine those and say, between all these automobiles and this particular software, it's a heck of a lot more reliable than the average driver, so there's no reason that people shouldn't feel trust in this particular issue. I don't know that automatically addresses all of the argument that the advocate presented, but then I think your counterclaim would be just a little bit stronger. On the insurance issue, I thought that there was a reasonable point here. Look, this is an evolving issue. What the advocate presented is mostly a question. It's not really an argument. And I think you want to point that out and says, okay, well, it's an interesting question, and guess what? They're working on the answer to that particular question. That doesn't mean that people won't use it and that they won't be able to develop in a short amount of time. The world changes pretty rapidly nowadays, and we grow pretty quickly in regard to it. And I think it would be easy to show how laws get adopted or private companies adapt to changes that happen pretty quickly. There are a lot of businesses out there that you could point to as examples for analogy purposes and say, Netflix has managed to survive not being, mailing out DVDs anymore and finding another way to support themselves. Businesses evolve and they develop, and that's all we're at. We're at the early stages of this. There's no reason to believe that it won't happen not only in our lifetime, but maybe in the next 10 years, which is what the argument that the advocate was presenting was. It wasn't that it would never happen, it was that it's not going to happen very quickly. And then I think you can make an argument about it being a little bit more rapid. On the third point, I like the idea that you've got some information about software that should address some of the issues that the advocate's talking about. I thought that was pretty effective, and it responds directly to the points that they're presenting. I think it's competitive on those particular points. This would be one of those places where probably getting a little bit more complete picture of the argument, both from the advocate and from your position, would help out a little bit, but it's very clear and easy to follow. All right, thank you.